Welcome back to Vintage Super League. We've only got two players left here in Season 3.
And two
Unfortunately for
casters.
me, I am not one of them.
But we do have two webcasters. Unfortunately for me, you are one of them.
That's true. That's true. You're the big winner here, Steve.
Oh, no. Well,
Eric
actually,
Froehlich, who never loses, of course. The only way he's not winning this is if Randy Buehler beats him twice in a row.
stranger things have happened.
And this is a weird matchup, right? We haven't seen anything like this pairing.
So for the folks who are just tuning in or maybe didn't get to watch their previous match, what happened?
Oh, well, Randy's got a good sideboard against Shops. Game 1, I did Chalice 1, Chalice 2. I had an opener with 2 workshops, Chalice. Sorry, 2 workshops, 2 chalices, and Wormcoil Engine. So I did Chalice 1 and Chalice 0 turn 1, which locks out a huge portion of his deck. I did Wormcoil Engine turn 2, and then Demonic Tutored on his turn 2, which I knew was for Deck Faden. So I chaliced for 3 on turn 3. Which
Wow.
So Randy, I was told that my chalice on 3 triggered Randy taking a lap around his house, which is why it took so long. I thought he was thinking about what blue card to remove to the game because Force of Will, but he was just taking a short walk around the house. But
Well, I have to confess that I was really hoping to see this matchup because Eric has just defeated the workshop decks, but we haven't seen this match.
yeah, this is
Bracket. This is one of our unplayed matches in this bracket.
right. I will say the only other interesting thing about me and Randy's match was that game 3, I held back a Soul Ring on turn 1 because I didn't really need it based on what was in my hand. And I wanted to be able to be explosive post Pulverize because Randy was playing a lot of games last week to kind of construct it around Pulverize.
That was some incredible restraint, Chris, because if I recall, you could have played Chalice 1 and Golem on turn 1 there.
Right, but I wasn't, and I figured that and I thought about that. It wasn't true. It looks like the game is going, so maybe we should talk about that.
There you go.
But anyway, me playing around Pulverize, I think, might have cost me the game. But I think it was somewhat of a judgment call.
So a little bit symbolic of Randy's deck. The most prominent or probably salient feature of Randy's deck is this Cabal Therapy, which has done quite well for him tonight. Eric happened to have, I think he had 2 missteps, didn't want to risk it, so just drew one of them in front of the therapy, denying Randy both the ability to name a card, but also see his hand.
Yeah, Randy's kept some really sort of mana-heavy hands tonight.
Yeah, I don't think that's all his fault. I think he's been sort of cornered into some of those situations. But here's Landstill going with a pretty strong start. Triple counter magic in turn 1. Soul Ring allows it to do a lot of nasty stuff. How many Jace does Eric have?
Eric has two Jace the Mind Sculptor.
2 Jace?
Yeah, this is honestly, we haven't seen many matches like this really in the whole league. Randy's deck is definitely not a traditional, like, it's a little bit different than the typical Pyromancer decks we've seen in the league. Like the Cabal decks give it a little bit of an angle that we haven't seen. And this is the first time Eric's played against anything like that with this deck.
Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think in an earlier match, Randy played Snapcaster Mage just for the body.
That is true.
And that may have some value here, actually. Eric's deck, he has for defense, he has factories, and I don't know what his full removal suite is, but, Randy could definitely use Snapcaster Mage EOT with all kinds of good stuff. But it's especially good when you have Cabal Therapies in the waiting.
So Randy is here. He's going to be able to. So Randy is going to be able to Cataxian Probe, see Eric's hand, Snapcaster Mage, Snapcaster back the Cataxian Probe to draw another card, and then sack the Snapcaster Mage to flash back the Cabal Therapy and take what's left of Eric's hand.
Right. So there was a big fight over that. And Eric has still managed to hold on to most of his counter magic here.
Right. Randy didn't really need. he didn't really need to Flusterstorm because the oh wow, he can Snapcaster he can Pyromancer Snapcaster now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean that's really perfect draw. But Randy did not really need to Flusterstorm there, right? Like he could have just done the same play. You know, he could have just done the same play without countering. Just wouldn't get the first card draw off the Taxiing Probe is really the only difference. Wow. So now it's funny that now the Cabal Therapy doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he's got Eric there throwing his Force and his Drain to prevent that Pyromancer, which makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Randy still is going to make this Snapcaster play. I mean, it's still the right play.
Probably.
He's just going to end up not.
The alternative is wait 2 turns and be able to flashback a Flusterstorm that was it for a situation that probably wouldn't.
No, he absolutely has to do this because in case Eric has something, like if Eric's last card is Dig Through Time, he's going to want to Cabal Therapy it. So he's going to Flashback Therapy here, or Flashback the Taxing Probe, realize his Cabal Therapy doesn't do anything, and say go. Oh man.
I don't. Oh boy, is that what I think it is? Is
That's a Decree of Justice.
I'm sure many of our viewers don't know what that is. So why don't you have the pleasure, Chris?
So it's funny that I don't even know what the real casting cost is.
So I think
it always gets cycled.
Yeah, it's a cycle.
But yeah, so you can cast it for a lot of mana and make Serra Angels, I guess. But what usually happens is it gets cycled to draw a card and create 1/1s. So it's like white 2, cycle, play X, and you get X 1/1s. So if Eric had waited 1 turn, he could have made a 1 angel, right?
A big angel, yeah.
Which is actually not bad in this matchup. Randy can't kill an angel.
How big is the angel? Is it 4/4?
4/4.
Yeah, it's almost a Sarah.
Right, so it's like, this is one of those weird matchups where you sometimes get in Eternal formats where like these decks are like super powerful and really complicated, but if you actually get a 4/4 flyer into play, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't really build my deck with that in mind.
Right. That's one of the ironies of Vintage, right?
Right, I mean it happens in Legacy quite a bit as well. You know, you had your Vintage deck where someone just slammed an Elishnorn into play and that was it.
Yeah, I had in that case I sideboard out all my plows, but yes, that's true. Looks like Landstill is doing its thing here, just picking off some of Randy's mana sources.
Oh, what a draw!
That is fantastic. Very curious if Randy's going to just use it now. I would be.
I think you have to use it now, right? Or
yeah,
maybe he's going to use that on Eric's upkeep. Because Eric does have.
Yeah, the upside of using it immediately is if you find a gush, you can replay a land.
Yeah, or if you draw, or if you yeah, you probably know your Cabal Therapy doesn't do anything, but yeah, he's gonna go for it.
I'm trying to pull up the deck list, but maybe you have it, Chris. What removal does Eric have in his deck main board?
Eric has he has 4 Swords to Plowshares and a Balance.
Ooh.
And 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor. He has 3 creatures, 1 Snapcaster and 2 Monastery Mentors, and he has 3 Mistress Factors. So Randy, Snapcaster, he's looking at Demonic Tutor, Snapcaster, Treasure Cruise, Force of Will, Strip Mine, Preordained.
Randy did.
It's Ancestral Recall. So he's going to take Ancestral Recall, but he's not going to have blue mana.
Yeah, Randy spent about 0.1 second on this Ancestral.
So he's just going to take a random blue card. He's taking Snapcaster Mage.
Makes sense. Yeah, Snapcaster is especially good here because, again, Eric basically has to spend 1 for 1 dealing with it.
It's amazing that Eric has drawn the stream of Strip Mines and Wastelands, and really he's just 1 turn behind. Like he's gonna Randy goes down to 1 land while Eric still has Strip Mine in his hand. If he had just somehow, I don't think he had an opportunity to do it, but
Yeah, and this Snapcaster here is also double duty because by trading 1 for 1 and getting the card advantage. Ooh, wow.
Yeah, he still needs to get a land though,
I would not be
because
surprised if he gets a land here, though.
he really needs to get a land because then the strip mine is not going to do anything because of the gush. But I mean, now he just has one chance at it. This is big. I mean, he does have.
Probe into probe.
He's got to keep going. Will he get it? Knows about the strip mine now.
Even though that strip mine's coming down, Randy has double counter magic and this live Snapcaster, and Eric's life is very precarious, so there's not much time for Eric to draw out of this.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen the Angel hit to play this game. Would have been interesting.
An interesting choice that Eric made. Wow, triple counter magic. Who needs land when you can counter 2 plows in a balance?
Yeah, no. So this is it. We've got. He has to hope that these counter spells go all the way. They certainly could. Jace followed by Jace balance would beat him.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that Eric. Yeah, Jace balance would do it, I guess.
And he could draw a dig, which would get him 2 cards.
Unfortunately, he's just drawn land.
He has drawn an insane amount of lands this game. And now he's dead because there's a lightning bolt. As long as Randy still has Volcanic Island left in his deck, which I believe he does.
How fitting. How fitting this game has begun with the Cabal Therapy and will be finished off by Lightning Bolt. His signature cards in this season.
Yeah. Wow. So Eric drew absolutely nothing. And we're going to the sideboards. Randy, as we've been seeing, does not have much. He's basically going to bring in a Pyroblast. He could bring in Electrickery, but I don't think it's very good. If it's against Young Pyromancer, it's fine, but against Mentor, it's too likely to brick.
Yeah, it's hard to evaluate what Randy's going to do. I think it really depends on Eric's. Maybe if we can get Eric's back up, we can take a look at that and then toggle back if need be.
What's up with the Dread of Knights in Randy's sideboard?
That's an anti-mentor. Yeah, I think an anti-mentor card.
So I guess he's planning on bringing that in.
So Eric has these Supreme Verdicts, which can really do a lot against the Mentor Pyromancer decks. I think we're going to see Supreme Verdicts come in. I don't know what else. Wouldn't you bring in this?
I just think it's hard because what are you boarding out? It's still very much like a control mirror.
Right.
Well, so I don't know this deck well enough to really have any idea what he's boarding out.
I think if he's looking for card advantage, wouldn't isn't the Supreme Verdict basically better than Plow? Supreme Verdict is uncounterable, right?
Right. It's just a question of, are there games where you don't get to 4 mana? In this matchup, probably not. Supreme Verdict, although Supreme Verdict also does kill your own Monastery Mentor, which is something to keep in mind.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm sorry. Eric has 2 Monastery Mentors. That's right.
I would guess that he will bring in 1 Supreme Verdict. It's something you want to be able to cast, dig through time, and find. Randy, Randy's deck is pretty tight. I don't know what he takes out for these Dread of Knights. You can't really take out. I don't think you take out Lightning Bolt. They're good against Jace the Mind Sculptor. They're good against Mentor. I guess Dak Faden's not at its best in this matchup. We'll see.
Yeah, this sideboarding is these hands are quite interesting.
So Eric is on the plane, has no blue mana, so I'm sure he'll mulligan.
Would you? So I'm not so certain of that. I mean, he has Force Misdirection and 2 blue spells and a Strip Mine and a Wasteland. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd be that quick to mulligan this. If you find a blue land in the first 2 draws, you've got standstill going, and you can probably take out all the lands that Randy will have for the first couple, first maybe even 5 turns.
Oh, he kept it. You're right. So now Randy just really wants to find. Randy, obviously a Mox would be unbelievable, but Mox Ruby, Black Lotus.
Yeah. This probe is actually amazing for Randy. I mean, not that Randy was going to break that fetch land anyway, but it definitely tells him you're not even secure with the basic. You gotta wait.
Yeah, I mean, Gataxian Probe's hell of a card.
There you go. There's your Dread of Night.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little bit surprised he brought. I mean, well, I don't know.
Well, it can't be in your sideboard if you're not bringing it in here, because I don't know what other purpose it serves.
Well, I think you bring it in against the more mentor-centric decks, but Eric's deck is very capable of winning without mentor. So, I mean, I hear you, but I don't know exactly what you cut for it. What bolts, I guess? Like, that makes sense. Cutting bolts for Dread of Night.
Yeah, I mean, you still could just lose to a actual just the mentor coming through, but
Yeah.
and
Actually,
also Eric's deck can win without Monastery Mentor. It does have Jace, it does have Vicious Factory, so I don't.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. Is I don't know how much Eric really leans on those mentors. They're just nice. They're probably just there as much for defense as anything else.
So if you're Randy here, I think you go for Young Pyromancer, not Snapcaster Cantrip.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Especially because you know you're going to lose.
You're going to lose
both lands, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, the only option is basically do nothing or play a Pyromancer here and try and protect it. He's seen Eric's hand, right?
Yes.
So if he goes for a Pyromancer, Eric's going to have to force and misdirect protect that. I think that's probably worth it. That's a 3 for 4.
I think you would go for it. The only other option is if you could get 2 islands and cast Snapcaster Flashback, but he doesn't have 2 islands in his deck.
Right, he doesn't. I mean, if he had 2 islands, he would probably have found one. Well, would probably not have played it, right? Would probably have waited in EOT Snapcaster or something, or play just the Snapcaster and probe.
So now we're going to lose the Snapcaster to the Force of Will, because you have to Force of Will here. You have no option.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree pitching with the Snapcaster instead of the Treasure Cruise too. And Eric is going to pitch probably the mana drain here. So if Eric just finds a land, a blue mana, he's in business.
But you got to remember, he can't take both Randy's lands if he wants to. So Eric did that in case of Gush. He wanted to know if Randy was going to Gush before he chose what to discard.
Super smart. That's a pro level play, actually.
Like, I don't know if he actually thought about, knew what he was going to do yet if there was a Gush, but he did. That's definitely the only real reason to play that the way he did, right?
Right. I think that's right. I mean, I suppose he could. The reason I think he has a Crucible main deck, so that's a reason not to. But yeah, fortunately, Eric's gamble is not paid off here. I think at this point you've just got to. I would probably throw the strip mine out at that point.
Oh, the Gush. And Randy does not have enough cards in his yard, so he can't Treasure Cruise yet, right?
Right.
He's 1 short?
He's 1 short.
That's nuts.
Not for lack of trying. He's got probes and all that stuff.
So.
Wow.
All right. So this is Eric's. So Randy draws a land, and Eric's in real trouble.
Yeah. Here comes the attack. And he can just
do you Treasure Cruise or Young Pyromancer here?
I
think you're Young Pyromancer because you don't have to lose your red mana.
I was just going to say that in all the games played so far today, when you and others have discussed whether to play the creature or the control route, you guys have always advocated the creature. This is the actual the spot in which you play the creature because you have Gush.
Right. Yeah.
So the strip mine's not really threatening. Oh,
Gush is just insane here. Oh, that was. I don't like that play from Randy. Attacking first gave Eric could have stripped and made him gush during his attack phase, and he couldn't.
Yeah, that was a miscue.
So do you gush here so that you can treasure cruise?
I would.
It's almost gonna end up.
It's just so much value, at this point. It's generating tokens. If it resolves, it draws cards. This is just
got the force of will he needed.
Yeah, this is where Eric really needs like Lotus Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, and this is where Supreme Verdict. Yeah, that's why you bring him one.
Lotus Balance might actually be insane too.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the first deck that's really utilized balance in VSL.
Interesting that Eric decided to respond with the Pierce there instead of the Flusterstorm. I think that I don't agree with that play because.
Wow, I don't understand.
Oh, there we go. That's it.
It just seems like Eric was still in that game if he drew white mana followed by balance, but.
Yeah, or Lotus followed by balance, any of those.
All right, so that was the match. That was quick.
Oh,
yeah, we got one more. So now we have one more match for all the marbles. I guess I'm going to stick around. And, hopefully they won't punish me by keeping me up too late. So we're going to go to one final match here in a second. Eric Froehlich versus Randy Buehler. Hall of Famer versus soon-to-be Hall of Famer, I'm guessing. Yeah, I mean, that match was really about Eric getting some pretty bad draws. I mean, he top-decked horrendously in game one, and then he kept speculative hand in game two that did not really work out.
Yeah, that hand was a gambit. I mean, that hand could have paid off in spades if he had just found that sapphire 2 turns earlier.
So Randy is on the play, and he has the opener you want of Gitaxian Probe into Cabal Therapy. We have not, but the mental misstep. So this is actually, if Ephro going to be forced to force of will, Cabal Therapy here, possibly. Now, I guess he won't, because there's nothing he wants to protect except Treasure Cruise. Oh, this will be interesting. And then, of course, if these games go like they have been going, Randy will do all this and then never draw a second land. And
there's a really a nice edge balance between land and spell density in this format that can really be punished by some of these nice edge plays.
All right. All right. So I've lost my screen here briefly, but here's the misstep on the Cabal Therapy. Randy will misstep back, and I guess Eric will have to. I would think Randy has a decision here. It's not actually clear to me what you take. What do you think, Steve?
So his options are, if I'm saying this right. Oh.
You can take Spell Pierce, Force Will, Brainstorm, Treasure Cruise. It's pretty clear you don't take Spell Pierce, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible. Your hand is Demonic Tutor and Dak Phaeton. You don't have the mana to cast Dak Phaeton or Young Pyromancer, so your Demonic Tutor is pretty important. Eric's Treasure Cruise or Brainstorm is not that great because he has to crack his fetch to cast it. He took the Force of Will.
Yeah, I would take either the force or the brainstorm, but I think ultimately in the end that force makes sense.
Oof, wasteland. I don't know if I agree that force makes sense. I think it's pretty complicated. Like this game is looking to be a long game, and are you that sad if Eric 2-for-1s himself with a force of will?
No, no, but the alternative is the treasure cruise is way too far away, I think, to be immediately
It's
threatening.
never that far away though. I mean,
Well, I think there's a qualitative difference between Eric's decks and some of these other decks that use preordain and cantrips. But your point is well taken.
right, the fact that Eric has no cantrips, I definitely noticed, in the match. That's why Chalice for 1 is just not as effective against him. Now Randy can play the Pyromancer because he knows about the Spell Pierce. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Just Force of Will just doesn't seem that Randy's deck is not really made up of haymakers. Eric is trying to hold off on that brainstorm so he can actually use the fetch land to get rid of these mental missteps. I think you have to strip mine that Mistress Factory, I think. So Randy's going to misstep back. He's going to get a bunch of 1/1s. I feel like at that point, knowing that he has 4 power on board, he's going to be priced into strip mining the factory because he's going to want to attack these creatures. Especially with the Spell Pierce in Ephro's hand, Dak Fading is not happening. That's basically a 4-turn clock, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to strip mine here. All right, so Steve will be joining us in a second. We've lost him briefly. Randy's in the tank here. I expect him to strip mine. Like, first of all, I mean, you're leaving Eric with 1 land, and his deck is not. He's not playing a Gush deck. It doesn't operate off it doesn't operate off 1 and 2 lands. It needs to cast slightly more expensive spells than the rest of the decks in the format for the most part that we've seen. And you have a bunch of dorks in play that you need to attack with. So I don't see. It just takes you so much longer to win if you have to worry about that Mistress Factory blocking. I think you have to do it. I mean, Dak Fading, you know about Spell Pierce. I think you have to strip.
Yep, we're good.
There it is.
And to your point, the treasure cruise is now live.
Yeah. May not be enough.
I'm sure Randy will look back at that therapy decision and try and evaluate how he did.
I mean, it's really complicated.
Yeah. You have to balance short-term, long-term tactics, lines of play. It's complicated to say the least, as you said.
Therapy is just not. Therapy's not, amazing against Randy's deck.
And no one said therapy is an easy card to play either.
So Eric's showing me more patience, of course, still not blowing the brainstorm, even though the board is, So now Randy can demonic tutor for Force of Will.
Yeah.
Or he could. Well, that's about. Does he have a better play than that?
Eric just blew his graveyard. Eric had all the wastelands he needed in there, right? For the Crucible.
Oh yeah, but I don't think he could have.
Yeah.
I don't think there was time to do that. Oh, so Randy has Cabal Therapy in his yard, which
So he knows at least one of the cards, if not.
He knows about Brainstorm. He knows about Spell Pierce. So I think the play here is Demonic Tutor for Force of Will and Cabal Therapy the Spell Pierce. But maybe you're better off Cabal Therapying the Brainstorm. Yeah, now I'm wondering why didn't he? I just forgot about the Cabal Therapy. I think
Yeah,
he
so
probably just should have Cabal Therapy Treasure Cruise last turn.
Yeah, so there's really a tangle of issues here. One is what do you Cabal Therapy? And then second, what do you Demonic Tutor for? And do the two interrelate in any kind of way?
But getting Force of Will when you know Eric has Spell Pierce in his hand is pretty pointless.
Yeah, I mean you're better off getting a misstep at that point. If your plan is to say strip out the Spell Pierce and then misstep the Brainstorm.
So Randy's taking the Brainstorm.
You know what? That's not actually the worst play. I would be inclined to just therapy the Spell Pierce and then misstep the Brainstorm. That generates a token. You can attack for 5 next turn. You're 2 points away from dead.
Well, I still think I'd rather get Force of Will because Dak is just really unlikely to do anything. So you might as well get Insurance.
Another thing Dak could do is if he goes on offense, he can steal the factory's activated. He could steal the factory.
Sure, but once again, the Spell Pierce is going to make it hard to cast.
No. What I'm saying is, I think you flashback to therapy, take the Spell Pierce, DT for misstep.
And then if you draw land, you can
play Dak. Yeah. The misstep just generates a creature, which is really what you want to do here, right? You're trying to generate tokens. Eric's at 7 life.
Yeah. I don't know why the chosen card is Brainstorm. I'm not sure why.
That also makes a lot of sense.
Right. So I'm not sure what Randy is supposed to DT for now. But he should DT for something. He's already played a land.
Force of Will is not going to stop Supreme Verdict. So what is it you're forcing, really? Like, what's the emphasis of Force here? I hear your point about you getting that back.
So you can Force of Will Jace the Mind Sculptor because Eric can only have 2 blue in play.
That's fair. That's fair. I would probably get.
You can Force of Will Dig Through Time.
I would get a draw spell probably.
You can get Gush here.
Yeah,
but you already played a land.
Yeah, but the Gush next turn, the Gush in the Dak is insane next turn.
I think you just get Force of Will because the problem is the Force of Will is Spell Pierce is going to stop you, and then so what are Eric's good draws? Force of Will is good against
Time Walk is a game winner.
It's going to get Spell Pierce though.
Yeah, but it's nonetheless a game winner if it resolves.
So what are Eric's good draws? Eric's good draws are Jace the Mind Sculptor, Dig Through Time. Force Will works against those. Balance, Swords of Plowshares. Force Will does not work against those.
Supreme Verdict.
Supreme Verdict does not work against that. Monastery Mentor does not work against that.
Yeah, I think if you're in Randy's position, you've got to go tempo here. You've just got to seal this deal as quickly as possible because if Eric draws a Supreme Verdict, this game turns around in quite a hurry. So I don't think you get Force of Will DT. I think you get Gush. I think you get probably not Mental Misstep at this point. I like my original plan of therapying the Spell Pierce and then misstepping the Brainstorm. That plan also makes Eric tap a land.
I think I agree with you. I think I like that play as well. Or you just do this.
Yeah, there you go. Gush. Can't go wrong with Gush.
Oh, but he can't actually therapy. Not that it really matters.
No, he just needs the tokens. At this point, Eric's only out is like a balance type effect.
Yeah. Well, this is game 1, right? We can't actually Supreme Verdict.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. That's what happens when
So now he has 2 blockers.
So at this point, you play the therapy on the Spell Pierce, and then next turn
you cruise. You can't actually attack their 2 factories.
Yeah, so he's not going to be able to attack with the Pyromancer, so you just need to generate, let's see, yeah. You can get 3 damage in right now.
So is getting 3 damage in right now correct?
I don't know. You'd be far more equipped to answer that question than me.
I think it is.
I'm inclined to agree as well.
But I'm also not sure. Oh no!
He didn't attack at all.
Right.
Now,
He didn't, of course, he's not gonna. He's either. Look at that! What a great draw! What are the chances? That's like the best draw in his deck. I guess balance is.
Yeah, I was gonna say balance is probably the best step. That's a not too far behind second. Balance would have been wipe your board, wipe your hand.
Wow, Decree of Justice. Although this does mean the Mishra's Factories can't block. So this actually is only 3 blockers. And here's a Gataxian Probe, so we're going to see it.
Yeah, and this is an alpha. This is game.
Yeah.
I believe this is game.
Yeah, not enough blockers.
Yeah, the trick there is in order to get the tokens, you have to tap your factories, so you don't have enough blockers.
Right, just has 3 blockers. So here we are, right back to so Ifro in this matchup, like we said, he's most likely just bringing in 1 or 2 Supreme Verdicts, I would guess.
Well, if you had to experience that game a number of times, you might be inclined to bring in more than 1.
No, I agree. The way the games have played out, it does seem like he probably wants more than 1 Supreme Verdict.
And you don't really want to fight 1 for 1 when you're playing land still. You just want to wipe them out. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to take out a plow, or even 2 for that. And as cute as Decree of Justice is, I don't know. Maybe Eric's going to leave it in, but it's certainly fantastic with Standstill in play. But I don't think you can rely on that.
I think it's a subtle difference, but like the fact that Eric's deck doesn't have the preordains and stuff is certainly part of the reason why he's a little bit more prone to just kind of bricking off and getting draws that aren't great.
Definitely.
Like he has to actually get one of those standstills in play and have it work out in his favor. It's a little harder to set up. Randy has kind of a bad hand. He has 2 threats. I don't think you can mulligan because it's like a controlling matchup and you can't risk like a horrendous hand.
Yeah. This hand is something you're compelled to keep, but it's not. There's no guarantee this will get there. And it's really a blowout if your opponent has Supreme Verdict and lands to play it.
Yeah, this is a game where mana drain is finally probably going to matter.
I'm really curious how many Dreaded Knights Randy brought in and what he took out for him. We've seen him bring it in the last match.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think the Dreaded Knights make a lot of sense.
Well, he did bring them in. It's just a matter of did he do it again, and if so,
Right.
what he cut for it. The old probe action.
Yeah, Randy's not going to like what he sees. Randy could have not probed here and just kept that probe as a blue card. I think that's totally defensible given that you want to. I mean, if you're planning on casting
the Pyromancer,
it seems like you probably just want to keep a blue card. Like the first one.
I agree with you. I think that that's a really disciplined play, though, right? You got to have some serious restraint. But
not really. I mean, what do you? I mean, now you have to pitch you essentially have to pitch a counterspell that would.
Right. And now the plow can just remove the creature.
Yeah,
But
I don't think it makes sense to probe there. I mean, obviously you're hoping to rip. I mean, unless you literally draw Cabal Therapy, it just doesn't seem that great to me.
so I'm curious, if you're in Eric's position and you obviously haven't seen Randy's hand, you go plow or do you go mentor?
I think you plow Wasteland.
I agree with you. I just think it's so tempting in these situations to play the mentor because then the plow generates a mentor token. But I think that's so greedy, and I've been punished by that play so many times that I'm with you.
It's interesting that Eric opened himself up to. I guess Randy just has the one strip mine actually, so it's not that big of a risk.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say it's interesting that Eric didn't use the wasteland.
Oh, I thought he was going to use the Wasteland, given that but I guess he wants to get the Jace.
Get to Jace. Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't know Randy's hands, and Randy's had a lot of land-light hands. That Black Lotus does straight 0.
That's true. Randy isn't, but Randy probably doesn't have a lot of land in this deck. Here we go. There's the Jace.
What is he going to do with it, though?
He's gonna bounce the Pyromancer and then next turn plow the Pyromancer and brainstorm. My guess.
I don't think he is.
No, he's drawing. You're right.
Yeah, he can't bounce it. I mean, that's just.
Well, why not? He could bounce it and then it will take 1 point and then he could brainstorm next turn. Force Randy to replay the Pyromancer, but he just decided to brainstorm.
Yeah, I guess Randy bolts here, even though it's not that exciting, since you can just kill Jace without the bolt.
Yeah.
But you gotta start winning. Gotta start getting your. Preordained into Time Walk would be nice here.
Jeez. That would be a blowout. These probes have worked out pretty well for Randy.
Gitaxian Probe is just. When you aren't playing against shops, it's an amazing card.
Just checking, he has not played a therapy this game, right?
I don't think so. I've thought about Gitaxian Probe quite a bit.
You have my favorite quote on Gitaxian Probe, which is, I think on Twitter you said something like, "When I die and go to heaven, I want God to tell me how many Gitaxian Probes I should have been playing."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously my real in-depth thought about it was in Legacy, because I felt with 4 Brainstorms and 4 Ponders in my deck, every time I cast one of those and saw a Gitaxian Probe, it was sort of like just throwing one of the 3 cards away, like it was turning my Ponders and Brainstorms into 2 card.
If I could just pause you for a second, Chris, this is an incredible ponder.
Yeah.
He's got Therapy, Pyromancer, and Treasure Cruise. Don't begin to ask me how to arrange that. He's seen Eric's hand, so I guess the key question is, do you want to?
Well, he knows about Force of Will, so he has to. I think he has to take Therapy. What doesn't make any sense to get your.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, he knows that the mentor is coming, right? But that's coming.
But the mentor's not coming. You get to Cabal Therapy twice.
Right, exactly. What I'm saying is, if he goes for the cruise and plays the cruise to make him use the Force, that means the mentor is coming. So you've got to stop that mentor from hitting play, which means I think you've got to go this route. Wow,
That's it.
Quick quick 2-0, 2-0.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes. I don't know if Eric just kind of got frustrated there and quit, or if he had no
Yeah.
verdicts in his deck.
Whoever
But yeah.
interviews him, whoever interviews, or yeah, I guess we won't be interviewing Eric, but
So
great.
that's it. Randy Buehler, season 3 champion. A little bit of a, shortened season, but still nice
Abbreviated,
for Randy to get on the board.
Yeah, abbreviated, but very entertaining.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Randy Buehler, who is the creator of this entire enterprise, and very happy for him. And we've had three different victors, and it was a delight to podcast to do this with you, Chris.
Yeah, it was fun. And I think we're gonna get Randy and Eric in here to talk about it, I guess. Is that right? Yes.